Hello everyone, today we are discussing a comparison between apes and humans. Why it is important? Because apes are our closest relatives in the animal kingdom. And also this question has been asked in UPSC mains previously. So approximately 15 million years ago, apes and humans had a common ancestor, and after which our lines of evolution diverged. Approximately 7 million years ago, the lines of evolution diverged for chimpanzees and us. So chimpanzees are our closest relatives even amongst the apes. So let's see who are the apes and why they are so special. So the apes are primates first of all, but they are different in the sense that they have a larger and more complex brain. And also because they live in the trees and they have this peculiar type of locomotion which is known as brachiation, in which they suspend themselves from the trees and also use this locomotion to grab food, etc. The arms of the apes are longer than the legs, and also the shoulder joints of the apes have been modified in such a way that it allows for more mobility, and that is those are the peculiar qualities of the apes. Now, which species comes under the definition of the apes? So first are gibbons. The gibbons are the smallest of the apes. They are found in Southeast Asia, and many of the species of gibbons are now endangered. And the unique thing about gibbons is that they have a very peculiar social structure where there is a pair of a male gibbon and a female gibbon and the offsprings. That is the basic social unit that gibbons have. So previously, some experts have described the pairs of gibbons to be monogamous, but recently it has been found that the members of a pair, the adult members of a pair, do sometimes mate with the other adults as well. Next are orangutans. So orangutans are found in tropical rainforest of Borneo and Sumatra, and their hair are reddish orange in color, and they show very remarkable or very marked sexual dimorphism, where males look very different than the females. So mostly they live in the trees, but being heavier, when they have to move from one tree to the other, they don't jump from one tree to the other. They climb down and they walk on ground and they reach the other tree. Next are chimpanzees. So chimpanzees are found in Africa. They are not only our closest relatives, but they are also very intelligent. So chimpanzees have been shown to be making crude tools out of sticks, etc. And also in some experiments, the chimpanzees could learn sign language and even converse with other chimpanzees with that sign language, and also teach their offsprings that language, the sign language. So it is very remarkable. Next are gorillas. So gorillas are found in Africa. They live in forests and they spend most of their life on the ground, not on the trees but on the ground. Gorillas live in a group of 15 to 20 animals, and each group has one or two silverback gorillas. Silverbacks are male gorillas who, after say approximately 13 years of their lives, they'll develop a saddle of white hair on their back. So that is how they are identified. So each group has this dominant one or two silverback gorillas, and other are mostly females and young males. Also, gorillas, also like orangutans, they show marked sexual dimorphism where males are much larger and bulkier compared to females. So, as we mentioned previously, apes and humans share a lineage. Approximately 15 million years ago, we had a common ancestor, and it is very interesting to see how similar and how different we are, apes and humans. So we'll come to that part now. So the humans have a large and complex brain. We are all aware of it. So the brain being just large in volume is not sufficient. We need to see the brain, the size of the brain in relation with the body size. So there is this index which it is a ratio between the body size and the size of the brain. So all throughout the primates, this ratio is more or less similar, but in case of humans, this ratio far exceeds. So what does that mean? It means that our brain is much more larger and much more complex compared to our body size and compared to other primates as well, including apes. So this large brain mostly has increased in size because of increase in size in an area of the brain called neocortex. Now what does this neocortex do? This neocortex gives us ability of cognition, cognitive abilities, also problem solving skills, also forethought, आगे की सोचना, and also language skills. However, it should be noted that amongst the primates, non-human primates, apes have a larger and more complex brain compared to other primates. So, if we compare to other non-human primates, apes show more complex social life, better developed cognitive skills, etc. Now, language. Language is a very unique feature of human civilization. We humans have language, we use language to communicate with each other. Our children pick up the language very unconsciously by listening to the parents and observing the parents. We don't need to teach our children language specifically. Our children learn to speak by their own just by listening to the parents. Now, it is very, very unique for humans. So, it was considered previously that language as such does not exist in non-human primates. Now, all primates are social animals, and in case of social animals, it is essential that the animals of the group communicate with each other. But this communication in non-human primates is mostly in form of some involuntarily made noises or actions or gestures. So it not the conventional language as we understand, but recently in some experiments it has been shown that the apes especially can pick up language. For example, chimpanzees, they can learn sign language and they can talk to each other in that sign language. And not only that, but they can also teach their offspring, the little ones, that sign language. A very famous example of such experiments is lowland gorilla, female gorilla called Coco, and a male gorilla called Michael. They both were included in the same experiment, and they both were taught sign language, and they both had developed considered vocabulary in that sign language. So earlier, as we considered that non-human primates do not have any capability of language, but that view is changing because of such experiments. Culture. So culture is another entity which is very, very unique to humans, and a peculiar thing about culture that it is learned. We learn culture. It is not something that we acquire genetically. The culture and its habits have to be learned. Now, as it is with the language, previously it was considered that strictly non-human primates do not show any cultural traits. But recently some experiments on orangutans, the scientists or the experts have found 19 such traits which showed considerable regional diversity. which means that these 19 traits differed considerably from one region to the other in the same species of orangutans. Now, the experts think that it is sufficient to now consider these traits as cultural traits, culturally learned traits. So, this is a new advance. So, now let's come to the differences that apes and humans have. So, as we saw, we have a lot of similarities, especially in the social structure, in the behavior, in the culture, in the language, and apes do show some ability, though it is less, but some ability to show these traits or develop these traits. But physically, humans and apes are different. We appear different and we are different. And what are these differences? So, our anatomical differences are because of some functional reasons, and mainly these functional reasons are: number one, humans walk erect. So, we stand upright and we walk. And apes, however, can also walk erect, but that is not their most common way of locomotion. So, humans walk erect while apes mostly do not. Secondly, our brain is much larger and much more complex compared to apes. And thirdly, apes are more muscular, and these muscles, obviously, muscles attach on the bones. So these muscles, they produce certain impressions and landmarks on the bones of the apes, which our human bones do not have, because we are not as muscular as the apes. So now let's look at the important anatomical differences between humans and the apes one by one. So first we look at the skull of humans and the skull of apes. So at the base of our skull, there is a aperture, a large aperture through which the spinal cord emerges. Now this aperture is known as foramen magnum. So in case of humans, because we stand erect, this foramen magnum has shifted almost to the center of the base of the skull, almost to the middle of the base of the skull. While in case of the apes, because they do not walk erect mostly, this aperture lies quite behind, quite posteriorly, and it's not at the same level as the humans. Second is sagittal crest. Now sagittal crest is a bony elevation in the middle of the skull, and this crest is formed because of attachment of large jaw muscles. So the jaw muscles go like this and attach to this crest here, and they produce this elevation in case of the ape's skull. Because apes are more muscular, their muscles are bulkier and more heavier, and this crest is thus formed on the skull. We humans do not have this crest. Third is zygomatic arch. Now the zygomatic arch is nothing but our cheekbones. The prominence of our cheek is formed by the zygomatic arch, and under the zygomatic arch the muscles of the jaw pass and attach to the skull. So because the muscles pass under the zygomatic arch and the muscles are bulkier and heavier in case of apes, the zygomatic arch is also more prominent and more developed in case of apes. And the last difference is the sloping forehead. So now the human brain is developed as such, so that our frontal lobe, the lobe of the brain which sits here just under this part of the skull, is much better developed and much larger compared to the brain of the apes. Now to accommodate this bigger brain, human skull has been remolded, reshaped in such a way that our forehead is not as slanting as the in the case of the apes. So because in the case of the apes the frontal lobe is much smaller and much lesser developed, they have a lot of slanting in their forehead, right? And also because of this peculiar difference in the structure of the brain, Just above the orbits, the apes have a large bony ridge. It is known as supraorbital ridge, and such prominent bony ridge is not seen in the human skull. So these were differences in the skull of the humans and skull of the apes. Now next is obviously which we have discussed before also, because apes have a lot of brachiation in their locomotion. Brachiation means hanging from the trees and suspension and moving in the trees in that way and grabbing food, etc. So because of this habit of brachiation, the arms of the apes are longer than the legs of the apes. That is not the case with humans. So our arms are not longer than our legs. But in case of apes, that is the case. The chest cage of the human beings is flattened from front to back. Now, why it is flattened from front to back is to bring the center of our gravity on our spine. Our spine is our weight bearing structure. It transfers the weight of our upper body to our lower body and ultimately to our feet. So it is important that this center of gravity of our chest be brought towards the spine so that we don't experience imbalance. So that is why our chest cage is flattened from front to back. And the vertebral column of human beings shows the S-shaped curve, again because of the kind of locomotion we have, walking erect, standing erect. So in case of apes, the vertebral column has only single gentle curve. It is convex posteriorly, the curve of the vertebral column of the apes. But in case of humans, the curve is S-shaped. So there is a different curve in our neck area and different curve in our lower back area. So those two curves are not seen in case of the apes. So our vertebral column is S-shaped, but in case of apes, there is just one single curve in the vertebral column. And next is the feet. Now we don't use our feet to grab anything. We just use our feet to walk. So because of this particular fact, our toes are not as well developed as in the case of apes, right? So all of the apes also use their feet to grab certain things, grab food, grab branches, etc., etc. So their feet are well developed, their toes are well developed, and their great toe even shows opposition. It's also opposable. What does that mean? Opposable means it can touch the frontal aspect of all the other fingers like this. So their great toe is opposable, their toes are well developed, and all this enables them to grasp branches with their feet, grasp food with their feet, and do many other things as well, which we do not. Our feet are only used to transmit weight. So our toes are not that better developed, and they are very closely placed together and provide a simple function of transmitting the weight. That's all. And lastly, the shoulder joint. So the shoulder joint of apes and also humans is designed for mobility. Because why? For in case of apes, it is designed for mobility because they do a lot of brachiation, lot of suspensory movement when they are in the trees, etc. And humans also can perform those kind of movements, the brachiation movement. We can also hang from the trees. We can also move between the branches. So both of our shoulder joints are much more mobile compared to other animals. And for this, there are specific anatomical adaptations in our shoulder joint. The scapulas, that is the bone, triangular bone that we can feel here in our backs, that scapula is sort of floating in case of apes and humans, which means that it is not fixed to the rib cage by any bone as such. And also the ball and socket joint we have in our shoulder is designed in such a way that it allows a lot of mobility. So these were the similarities and differences that apes and we have. And again, apes are our closest relatives in the animal kingdom, and the experiments have shown a lot of capabilities that the apes demonstrate, and a lot of potential that they can learn a lot many things, and our knowledge about apes is constantly increasing, enlarging. And also to note that many of the species of the great apes, especially gorillas, the gibbons and the chimpanzees, are now endangered. So it is also important that we conserve these animals, these intelligent animals, who are also our closest taxonomical relatives in the animal kingdom. Thank you so much.